Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the podcast where we dive into the world of sports, gaming, and things in between. I'm your host, Jeffrey Long, and welcome to Jeff's World. Now, I haven't been able to upload any more episodes in the past weeks because of things like school and a lot of other things in between, and I just really couldn't get around to doing it. And now, finals are going on, so because of that, I only got to do one topic for this episode, so I'm going to try to stretch it out as long as I can. It's not the MLB lockout, surprisingly. I was going to do an episode on that, but I wanted to wait until I'm properly educated on I can't speak today, the subject of it first before I really dive into it on an episode of this podcast. So we're going to be talking about the potential college football 16-team playoff expansion. So for those that don't follow college football, this is a FBS or CBF or whatever, but it's not FCS, unfortunately. They already have more than 4 teams competing. Ha ha ha. Currently, or as it's been, the top 4 teams, according to the AP poll, will compete in a playoff that consists of 2 rounds, being the first round and then the championship game. And it's only the top 4 teams. And right now, as of December 10th, 2021, the top 4 teams are, from 1st to 4th, Alabama, 12-1, Michigan, also 12-1, Georgia, also 12-1, and Cincinnati, 13-0. We have an undefeated team. Still, Georgia ultimately lost to Alabama. The previous rankings, Alabama used to be 4th, they jumped to 1st. Michigan jumped up to, well, no, they didn't jump at all. They jumped up in the air. They didn't move up or down. They just stayed in 2nd. Georgia was number 1, then they dropped to 3rd after their loss to Alabama. Cincinnati was 3rd, but they dropped to 4th. I don't know. It's their logic. I don't know what it is. But back in April of 2021, it was brought to the board that we should expand the college football playoffs. And this would be the top 16 teams. So if, let's say in 2021, we are doing the top 16 teams. The teams that would make it in from 1st to 4th, we'll just start at Cincinnati. So 4th to 16th are Notre Dame, Baylor, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Oklahoma State, Utah, Michigan State, Brigham Young, I think I'm pronouncing that right, Pittsburgh, Oklahoma, Oregon, and Louisiana Lafayette. Those are the 16 teams that would make it in if we were under the 16 teams. Now, this whole idea of the 16-team playoff format, it got some mixed responses. Some people say it's a good idea because it offers more teams it offers more teams an opportunity to get into the college football playoffs. And instead of just 4 teams getting it. Because and this is just a personal thing, I feel like just 4 teams in a playoff, this just sounds quick and it's not all that much fun. Which I get it. Like, what point do you sacrifice competition for viewers? And college football is a huge market, especially in the South and some places up north. But, especially where I'm from, like Alabama, because you have Bama, Auburn, and I think Troy. Yeah, Troy. But I haven't heard much from them ever since they beat LSU. So if we expand to a 16-team playoff bracket, that could offer more teams in different leagues like the Pac-12. The ACC's already been there plenty of times. Brigham Young is in IA Independence, the Sun Belt, a lot of other leagues, instead of just the SEC and the Big Ten. Because let's just face it, those are pretty much all the teams that make it into the college football playoffs, and except for IA Independence multiple times. This is Cincinnati's first time going into the college football playoff, I believe. I'm not entirely sure on that, but someone will back me up on that. But if we were to switch to the 16 teams, not only do other schools have a chance of getting in, but we can get a different champion every year possibly. Because if it's just the 4 teams, odds are they're going to be the same 4 teams. Because remember, Clemson started making their runs. Bama's still making their runs. Georgia is trying to make a big run. They came up short last time. At least I think that was them. Yeah, that was them. And here's another topic to bring up, And I'm sorry if I'm stumbling around here. It's just that with finals and all that, I haven't really had much of a time to come up with a script. I'm literally no scripting this. Please help me. But yeah, well, we can allow other teams to really not benefit on some lucky matches because people don't watch playoffs because they're playoffs. People watch them because they want to see the best teams compete. They don't want to watch, some school like Alabama go up against a school that they've beaten plenty of times in the past, and odds are they're going to do it again. Instead, we could see a school like, Ohio State. No, Ohio State's already been to the playoffs. We could see a school like, Brigham Young play Oklahoma for whatever reason. And then that teams can make a run. Because if you made it to the playoffs, then you can make some big upsets and get your school more popularity. You can, again, make runs and not many lucky matchups. And the tougher schools like Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, and Cincinnati, since they're 13-0, they'll have to play teams that are like also ranked because some of them play a lot of unranked teams. Speaking of unranked teams going up against ranked teams and actually putting up a fight, the Iron Bowl, if you guys didn't watch that, I couldn't because I was just busy that night. Auburn was winning, and Alabama threw a dime, or a quarterback. I forgot who the quarterback is for Crimson Tide. I know a lot of people in Alabama who I know who are going to get really furious that I don't know who that guy is. Please don't hurt me. Just don't. Don't poison my trees. I'm joking. Please don't get mad at me. The quarterback for Alabama threw a dime touchdown to tie the game, and then we had to go into overtime. We didn't get it settled in the first overtime. And there are no ties in college football. So we went to a second overtime, which led to a third overtime, which led to a fourth overtime. Finally, we had a winner, and it was Alabama. So people, right when that game ended, people were putting hands in the air. Like, Alabama went 4 overtimes with an unranked team. What the hell? Like, is that good, or is that bad, or what? Like, yeah, they still won, but they put up 4 overtimes with an unranked team. And people were immediately calling for Bama to lose a position in the AP poll, which me personally, it's a huge can of worms on how the AP poll works, that it's probably just for an entire episode. I think my very first episode ever on this show was about the AP poll. Yeah, here it is. I have the script right here. I have a folder that has all my old scripts for every single episode, except for this one because we're no scripting it. Ha ha ha. But yeah, it's from, I'm trying to do the math here. October 29th was the first episode. And the second topic ever on the show was the college football AP poll and how people were accusing it of being biased. So now I'm not saying AP poll is biased. However, there is a running joke going around called the A in AP does not stand for Associated. It stands for Alabama. That's a joke I've heard constantly. Like when a friend of mine found out I was writing an episode about this, and he just sent me a bunch of Alabama jokes, and I think they're hilarious. But yeah, shout out to him. But going 4 overtimes against an unranked team in the form of Auburn, which I understand, like maybe Alabama just didn't realize the competition that Auburn would put up, and in their defense, that's a valid argument, but they shouldn't have to, because they're an unranked team, but they're still a team. They could, which contradicts my point about the unranked team. I am a mess today, but it might just be the finals or the weather today. But when you go 4 overtimes on an unranked team, that's a little concerning. Like if I were Nick Saban, I would be annoyed. But then again, like he seems like he would yell after winning by 50. I'm sorry, it's just like okay, Alabama defeats. Oh, let's just pick our random school on here. Eeny, meeny, miny, Arkansas by 50 points. And Nick Saban's over here yelling at the team in the locker room because they didn't score enough. So, like, there's that stereotype or running joke. So yeah, the addition of a 16-team playoff format, I think that would be genius because now I think it gives more teams an opportunity to make a run, to show how good they are, more matchups. So for those of you that love college football, you get more football. Who doesn't want more football? I'd like more football, even though I'm a hockey guy personally. But yeah, more college football. So all the rednecks get to be happy. All the broadcasters get to make more money, and schools get more games to play. And I feel like it would be more accurate depicting a champion, because again, if it's just like let's say Alabama, let's say they win the championship this year, they only have to play 2 games. But in a 16 team, they have to play like 4 games, which I feel like if you want to prove that you belong in the national championship game, you shouldn't have to play one single game against a really good school when you could play 4 games against really good schools. So I think that's my justification for a 16-team playoff seed. And we're gonna add a little bonus topic for this episode today. The new Warzone map dropped recently. It is called Caldera, and it takes place in the Pacific on an island. I am yet to play it. I had a burp there. I am yet to play it because, well, again, finals. So I think I'm going to probably play a match when I get home. The only issue is that last I checked, which is like I think 2 days ago, it was quads only. And I thought, I don't want to play with randoms. But then again, I play Apex with randoms. So I guess I'm just going to have to suck it up and play with randoms and just not talk to them because I am the biggest introvert you have ever listened to. I'm willing to bet on that. The new map, from what I've heard, it's a pretty solid game. And Sledgehammer, I believe they're doing a great job with like tweaking the game, listening to fan reactions and criticisms. And I feel like they're really making a good example because like with all the crap that Activision, Infinity Ward, and Treyarch went with Warzone with hackers and all that, Sledgehammer kicks down the door and says, I'm going to show you guys how to deal with this. So they're dealing with it. Now, for the Ricochet anti-cheat, from what I've heard, it's doing a good job. It's doing its intended objective. It's not messed up, and last I heard, no outcry for hackers yet. I think, like, for the first time in a while, I'm stunned. It's doing a great job. So great on them for coming up with the Ricochet anti-cheat, which was actually, coincidentally, the very first topic I ever talked about on this amazing podcast. Ricochet anti-cheat and if it'll work. I feel like a lot of people do get a little too hard on Call of Duty. Like they'll bash them really hard, which I understand. They're like the biggest selling gaming franchise out there on the Xbox and PlayStation and so on, besides Nintendo. But you get the point. So of course they're going to get like really harsh criticism if they mess up one small thing. And I'm not saying that hackers are small, but I mean like the accuracy of what a gun sounds like, or even what a gun looks like. Because remember in Call of Duty World War II, the M1 Garand reload was off, and how people were really pissed about that because like when you cock it back and you push down the cartridge, the slide wants to go in automatically. You don't have to push it automatically. It'll do it by itself. I mean, you don't have to push it manually. It does it all by itself. So, of course, people were getting pissed about that. Personally, I don't really see why they got super pissed about it. But, they have their reasons. So, with the new Caldera map, I'm yet to play it. However, I've seen people like FaZe Jev and all that. They played it. And FaZe Jev nearly got run over by an airplane midair as he was parachuting. And he was yelling, and it was hilarious. So, if you guys haven't seen FaZe Jev's video, go check that out. It's actually really funny. And that concludes another episode. That's all the time we have for this week. As much as I love hanging out in the studio and rambling for about 15 to 20 minutes, it's fun to do it. Now, next week's episode, I want to quickly point out, will be the final episode of the semester. It doesn't mean I'm done with the podcast. I love doing this podcast. But there's going to be a change. And that I won't be here. The current room I'm sitting in is in Rust Media Center in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, because I'm a student of Southeast Missouri State, or SEMO. And my hometown is all the way in Huntsville, Alabama. So that's where I'm going. So if you notice the audio sounds a little different, like you hear the echoes better, that's my room. It's going to sound a little different. But I am going to try my best to keep this show going because I will admit it's actually really fun to do. You get to do research for an episode, and ultimately it's fun. That's why I like doing it. It's really fun and becomes a very good hobby. But that concludes another episode of Jeff's World. Thank you so much for stopping by and listening to me ramble on for a while about things that some people may not even care about. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit the like button and hit subscribe to be notified for future episodes when they go live. Stay safe, enjoy your weekend, and don't do anything stupid.